An officer asks you to step out of the car, and he immediately places you into handcuffs. But he doesn't say you're under arrest. Can he do that? What rights do you have? 2 different viewers contacted me about the law surrounding handcuffs and what rights you have in these situations. I thought it would be a good time to dig in so you understand what to do and how to defend yourself. First, Patrick wrote in with this question. When you are pulled over by an officer and after a brief discussion with the officer, they tell you to step out of the vehicle, I understand that you must comply with that request from an officer. But when you do step out of the vehicle, the officer puts their hands on you and maybe puts you in handcuffs. Is this allowed? Unfortunately, handcuffs are like many things in the law. It depends. The main reason that an officer can put you in handcuffs is if he has probable cause to arrest you. And probable cause can be something clear-cut, like he just saw you assault another citizen right in his presence. Or it could be something more nebulous, like he believes that you may be inebriated.
Sir, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for DUI.
I routinely see this exact situation with my clients. Usually when you're being placed under arrest, the police officer is going to place you into handcuffs because he doesn't know what you might do next. Like finding a weapon in the back seat of the police SUV and opening fire, or opening a window and diving headfirst to your freedom. But then again, as citizens, we don't know what the officer might be about to do either. Like parking on train tracks with you handcuffed in the back seat of the cruiser, or being overly aggressive. So keep in mind that everyone is on edge when handcuffs come out. The best way for you to respond is to relax. Take a deep breath and allow the officer to handcuff you. Now is not the time to struggle, pull away, tense up, or try to resist the handcuffs being placed on your wrists. That's only going to make it more difficult and more tense for everyone involved. If the officer has not explained why he's placing handcuffs on you, it's reasonable to ask once what his reason or justification is. If he simply won't tell you at that point, it frankly is to your best interest to remain silent and worry about it later in court. Continuing to ask why you're being cuffed or to argue with his reason or justification is not going to help you on the side of the road. But shouldn't you resist if you know that you've done nothing wrong? As we've talked about in other videos, you do have the right to use reasonable force to resist an unlawful arrest. But it's not in your best interest to do so because you're just asking for a world of hurt. It's never a good idea to go around poking bears. It's kind of like being a husband. You can be smart and say, yes dear, or you can be right while you sleep on the couch all night. So what if you're not under arrest?
Sir, you are not under arrest at this time, but I'm going to temporarily detain you with these handcuffs while we investigate.
I used to see this a lot with marijuana cases, especially if there were lots of people involved or all together in a vehicle that the police wanted to search. The police would routinely ask everyone out of the vehicle, place them in handcuffs one by one, sit them down on the curb while they searched the vehicle. Obviously that's changed now with Virginia's legalization of recreational marijuana. Is that legal? Probably. It's called a Terry stop, and it's named after the famous United States Supreme Court case of Terry versus Ohio. The police can temporarily detain you if they have reasonable articulable suspicion to believe that you have committed a crime or that criminal activity is afoot. Technically, being detained only means that you're not free to leave. So can the police use handcuffs to enforce that? Yes. A Terry stop is only valid to begin with if the police have a reasonable articulable suspicion to start it, and it's only valid as long as it continues to be reasonable. For example, your wife might make it known to you that you've left dirty dishes out on the counter for an unreasonable amount of time. Whereas it's reasonable to leave dishes out for a little while after a meal, at some point you need to get them cleaned and put away. Similar to how the length of a Terry stop is based on reasonableness, an officer can use handcuffs during a Terry stop, even without arresting you, if there is a reason to justify it. Since this is the law, and us lawyers make things very complicated, in a Terry stop, there is really no bright line rule of when a good reason to handcuff you might be. There are 2 basic indicators that you can tease out from a lot of the cases that analyze this question, and they are if the police believe that you pose a risk of violence or a risk of flight. This means that if you're the subject of a brief Terry stop, you shouldn't do anything to give the police something to point to claim that they think you're going to fight or flight.
Up, get your hands back up. Stop walking, now. Do not get near that car. Don't open that door. Do not get in that car. Don't you dare reach for that glove compartment.
You can't control what the police believe in their heads, but you can control what they see and what they observe and what they hear. So you can try to keep yourself calm, quiet, collected, not give them reason to believe that you're going to fight them or try to run away. Because things that you do that you may just be agitated and upset with the situation, they could later try to argue to the judge that that was the reason they handcuffed you, because you were verbally aggressive or you were throwing your arms around or whatever it may be. And something as simple as even hiding your hands or keeping them in your pockets could be used by the police to articulate that they believed you were a risk of violence or were trying to pull out some kind of a weapon. This is why it's important to try to keep your hands visible at all times, keep your movement slow, and not give the officers any reason to believe that you're a threat to them or anyone around you. Okay, but what if that doesn't work and you get cuffed anyway? Another fan, Rhonda, sent a great voicemail via the SpeakPipe.
My question has to do with, after you comply and get out of the vehicle, do you have to submit to them searching you and then putting you in handcuffs? And it especially seems to happen when people try to enforce their rights by not answering questions. It almost seems like it's more of a retaliation to make it as uncomfortable as possible for you.
Rhonda may be right in some cases. I personally have seen defendants and officers up in the ante on each other instead of the officer properly de-escalating the situation. And this can end with the officer exerting his physical force and authority over the body of the defendant. Still, you have to relax. There will be a time to complain about the officer's behavior later, but while you're on the side of the road or involved in a tense situation at your house is not the time to argue about what the officer's trying to do. There may be even a time to sue this officer and collect a huge settlement check, but it's not right now while he's trying to put handcuffs on you. Some courts might even let you sue the officer if the handcuffs are put on too tightly in retaliation against you. There's a case making its way right now through the North Carolina courts where the plaintiff alleges that the officer put on handcuffs extremely tightly on the defendant's own driveway. But keep in mind that these tight handcuff cases usually involve actual physical injuries to the defendants from the handcuffs after they've told the officer that the handcuffs are very tight on their wrists. This is one reason if the handcuffs are tight or they seem like they're causing problems or pain, you should definitely mention that to the officer, because that might be useful in the future if you do have some kind of injury from the cuffs. And to learn how to get out of handcuffs as fast as possible, check out this next video. I'll see you over there. And remember, the best way to stay out of handcuffs, don't talk to the police.